This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. Evil, and that I refuse to believe.
Okay, I was rewatching this yesterday because it's a weird thing. You have to occasionally go back and revisit your memory. And I went back and for the life of me, it's turned into a meme. Everybody knows that. How dare you? And you get the meme and it's on Twitter and the GIFs and it's on whatever. I went back and watched it again just because I was having a little bit of, nostalgia yesterday. I went back and watched Grace VanderWaal's original performance. And I went back and watched this. I won't play the whole thing again, but a lot of it makes a lot more sense in retrospect. She's not an actress. She's a prop. And I didn't realize the degree to which whatever puppet masters were playing her like the marionette that she is, were exploiting this fragile, mentally unwell child.
Dreams,
listen to this.
My childhood with your empty words. And yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying.
Do you hear the intake of breath? It's like when a kid cries so much and you hear them like what's all happened this week. You just sob and you're like, it's a panic. Oh, what did I just do here? No, I just want to focus on
Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money.
This is a straight up panic attack. And instead of the adults in the room being the adults in the room sat there and exploited, I was going to say Greta Van Susteren again, Greta Thunberg, for the prop that she is, a child being exploited and weaponized for political profit. And did she say for the last 40 years? Yeah, for the last 40 years, I'm old enough to remember that we had a magazine, Time magazine, talking about global cooling, talking about the fact that we were going to enter into an ice age if we kept going at this rate. The polar ice caps were going to take over the earth. That was settled science back then. Anyhow, I've been called an anti-climatist, an anti-climatite, an anticlimactic-tite. I've been called an anti-climatist, a climate denier, because I point out the obvious, that the people who say the science is settled are the same idiots who told us that the jibby jab would prevent infection. That the people who say it's settled science are also the ones telling us, global cooling 40 years ago. The ones saying it's settled science, go green, and then don't answer the basic questions. What the hell charges the cars, Joe? Holy crab apples. Good evening, everybody. Let me see what I look like here. It seems that it's asymmetrical because it's showing too much of that side. That's going to bother me. There you go. That's it. I like the Betsy Ross flag. I forget who. It's beautiful. Good evening. It's another Sunday, which means it's another day of Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, Sunday Night Law Extravaganza. I was taking a trip down memory lane last night. I watched Greta Thunberg's video again, and I went back and watched Grace VanderWaal. No, sorry, hold on. Please. Oh, when we find any misinformation, Carly, I believe Carly is actually a troll or a satire parody account, so it's actually quite funny. We'll let you know when we find any misinformation, Carly. So I went back and watched Greta Thunberg because I was looking for the meme. How dare you? in the vlog that I put out yesterday, which was an analysis of Alex Jones's lawyer, Norm Pattis, had a big W. We're going to talk about it tonight. And then it's like, oh, speaking of child exploitation, I wanted to go back and watch Grace VanderWaal and then see what's happened to Grace VanderWaal. And I did. And I went back and watched her song, I Don't Know. Beautiful song. I remember my kids were in love with it back in the day. And I forgot that that's like 10 years ago now, give or take. And then I had my, philosophical musings, meanderings as an old man. Now knowing the level of child exploitation that goes on in the world, and especially in certain parts of the world, that being the Hollywood parts of the world. And I put out a tweet, like the idea, like when I get what I want, I'll be happy. It's from a Lazy Boy song. I forget which one. I think it's We Only Read the Headlines. Lazy Boy has some great songs, but the greatest lie anybody can tell themselves is when I get what I want, I'll be happy. And you look back at all of these people who strike gold, they get fame, fortune, at a very young age, at a too young age. That girl that danced in the song for Lady Gaga. Oh, no, not Lady Gaga. Sia, that ballet dancer who, got too famous too quick. And then I just decided to look into, whatever happened to Grace VanderWaal and the standard stuff, psychological distress, all the other stuff, I'm going through articles. But I put out a tweet. And I guess I have a big enough following now that I can't have random philosophical musings. I say, imagine if you realize that your big break actually turned out to be your biggest curse. Just a standard thought, like, Drew Barrymore. I do wonder if she thinks her childhood stardom was a blessing or a curse. And then I wake up this morning and I see a freaking community note on my meanderings as an old man, pontificating on the meaning of life. This is simply engagement farming by giving no context leading to assumptions. Talk about giving no context leading to assumptions, you weaponized rubbish. Community notes. Nothing in the news states anything negative that has happened to Grace VanderWaal. I guess I don't follow the news as much. The girl posted the video in her past or present. And I guess they didn't, follow her growth. America's Got Talent, Grace VanderWaal shares mental repercussions of growing up in Spotlight. That was a year and a half ago. And I just go back and I'm looking at this, and this is just like, it makes me angry in retrospect. Like, people want to be recognized and they want to succeed on their merits. And then, as the old adage goes, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes getting what you want could be the biggest curse. Anyways, they took down that community note because it was absolute rubbish. But speaking of people acting like lefties, I'm joking. I'm not gonna go into my vlog earlier today, but I put out a vlog breaking down that funny event at the Libertarian Convention yesterday. Haven't gotten as much hate from the Libertarians as I thought I would, because I was needling them a little bit, picking on particular the New Hampshire Libertarian Twitter account, which is, if it were a troll account, I think the Libertarians of the rest of America would do good to disavow it or dissociate themselves from it. But no, we're going to talk real lefties before we get the show on. If you didn't know, by the way, yesterday was the 4th anniversary. Do you call it an anniversary when you're commemorating a death? I mean, I guess you do. If you didn't know, well, I got to tell you, then you weren't on Twitter yesterday. It's the wildest thing on earth. Now that we've lived through what we've lived as a collective, we've lived through COVID and the lies about COVID. We've lived through jab mandates and the lies about jab mandates. We've lived through face masks and the lies about face masks. We've lived through Ukraine-Russia conflict, and we've learned the lies about... Do you remember when Victoria Nuland came out and said, there are no biochemical or bioweapons labs? There are... bioweapons research facilities. And, in case you didn't know, the same people that had been pushing all those lies, January 6th, lies of narratives, well, they've got a new one. And in case you missed it, I mean, I don't know where the hell you were yesterday. This is Joe Biden from yesterday. George Floyd should be alive today. He deserved so much more. Today, I joined all those who loved him and all those who touched by the civil rights movement he inspired in remembering the tragedy and injustice of his death. He changed the world. Now let's act in his memory. Can you imagine trying to turn George Floyd into a civil rights martyr? I mean, his death is tragic, and some might say he deserves so much more. Yeah, Joe Biden, you drafted the crime bill that destroyed a generation of black men's lives. He deserves so much more. Yeah, he deserved not to get hooked on fentanyl and drugs, but you've been shipping too much money off to Ukraine to take care of your own citizens. He did deserve more, oddly enough, from the very government that is now celebrating his death, because that's what the government does. And I'll point a finger and say that's what Democrats love to do. weaponize the victims of their neglect to teach us all a lesson. Justin Trudeau gets caught wearing blackface. He's got to use that as a teaching moment for me, not for him. That's what, imagine just in the best, most charitable of interpretations and circumstances, George Floyd was a career criminal, drug addict who died in tragic circumstances because, and I no longer believe this because I watched the trial, but in the most charitable of interpretations of reality, he was a career criminal who held a gun to the belly of a pregnant woman as they robbed her, who was hooked on drugs, who died because of some miraculous complication of Derek Chauvin putting his knee on his back. Set aside the fact that I don't think the evidence supports that anymore. They go around and parade him as a martyr. In the best of cases, that's what he was. In the worst of cases, he was a criminal who died of a drug overdose while he was getting arrested. Fact check me. But the coroner says that the coroner says some very interesting things. And now we know a lot more about that trial. But it wasn't enough with Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi's got to chime in. 4 years ago, George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. His last words, "I can't breathe." Remember the hands up, don't shoot? I can't breathe. Oh, hoaxes, lies. He mobilized, his last words, mobilized millions around the world to call for an end to. He mobilized people around the world to burn shit down. To how many people died during the Summer of Love 2020 revolt to George Floyd, the martyr George Floyd's death? David Dorn, shot by someone else defending a store from looters. No, they don't honor that black man. We must honor his memory by passing Democrats George Floyd justice. In the harder they push this crap, the more I know that the official narrative is wrong. Ben Crump, 4 years ago, George Floyd was killed. What's the other one here? Senator Alex Padilla, George Floyd should still be alive. Today, 4 years after his murder, we continue to demand accountability. I mean, you know that it's a lie of a narrative, if only by virtue of how they respond to it, how they push this endlessly. Like endless pushing of a narrative, which you know, in as much as they talk about the January 6th insurrection, you know that this is probably just as false. Now, I'm getting distracted because I want to send Barnes the link for the show tonight. There we go. So that was what they were doing yesterday. And I put out a poll to see who thinks that drugs were a contributing factor to George Floyd's death. And it was like 94% said yes. Oh, lordy. No, here. Drew Hernandez put out a video. This is what George Floyd's death sparked. Civil rights. Drew Hernandez. I'll show you. I'll share the tweet with you. Civil rights, people. Police brutality. Civil rights. Can you imagine this? I'm not a fan of this recording. Stop spinning in circles, man. All right, get out. Summer of Love. Mostly peaceful, slightly fiery protest. I'll tell you, look, I'm not much of a person to go out and protest civil rights. I do, but when I do, I make sure to loot and steal stuff and burn stuff down. That was the here link to the tweet. Link to tweet. By the way, you may notice I did it for the first time. Why was I late tonight, everybody? Because I went to the car because my beautiful Florida man purse was there. Because I wanted to upgrade my StreamYard so that I could stream to 4 places, including Twitter. Because we're going to do it, and we're doing it. And I had to add I had to add something which I'm, hopefully not going to use for very long. But we're live on Twitter as well, people. So all 4 platforms, but we're going to end on YouTube and Twitter to bring everyone over to Rumble and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. All right, people, back to the show. We're live across the platforms. I should have made sure that we are good and live on Rumble. Viva Fry on Rumble. Let me make sure we're good here. It looks like we're good here. Oh, yeah, we're here. We're good. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure we're good. Put this on pause. Put it on pause. Close that. Make sure we're good on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Are we? We are. We're live on Rumble. And we're live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and we're live on Twitter as well, for whatever that's worth. Everybody, when the poo-poo hits the fan again, and you are locked in your homes because the government decides to tell you what to do with your bodies, or you're locked in your homes because people are burning stuff down in the streets in their civil rights, protesting police brutality, except when, if it ever happens again and you find yourself screwed in that you can't get to a pharmacy because it's been looted in the name of civil rights, and you need medicines, everybody, where do you go? Make sure that you have protected yourself with the Wellness Company. Everybody, the WHO's global pandemic treaty has been a topic of conversation for many months and many reasons. But if the government has a play in this game, which they always will, it will be to inject as many people as they can with whatever they deem necessary this time around. And wouldn't you do it? On the eve of the treaty vote, we're going to talk about this tonight as well, the FDA commissioner stood on Capitol Hill and stated that the current bird flu virus is mutating quickly, and that the 24% mortality rate that has been documented when this virus has jumped to humans confirms the need for testing, antivirals, and, you guessed it, more jibby jabs, people. I'm not calling them vaccines because they're not vaccines, jibby jabs. I don't know about you, but at this point, my response to this kind of rhetoric is no. Fool me once, shame on me. I screwed it up. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The chief medical board of the Wellness Company has been monitoring this bird flu outbreak for many weeks now. Dr. Peter McCullough recently made a statement that we should all take to heart. Dr. McCullough pointed out that the severity of the bird flu pandemic would achieve multiple global goals all at once. The severity and transmissibility of the virus would result in the killing of animals, which means food scarcity, and the fatality rate of the avian flu means historically, oh my goodness, people should fear getting the disease. It's the next fear campaign. And who was I talking to that said if it jumps to humans and goes from human to human too quickly, we know that they've been doing a little bit of special stuff. So is H5N1 disease X? It's hard to know for sure, but the media push behind this disease at this time should not be ignored. People, if we ever result in the exact same thing that happened the last time, non-essential businesses shut down, but essential pharmacies left open, but you have to, queue up to get in, make sure you have your own contagion kit at home. Avoid the prices of doctor visits, et cetera, et cetera. Get a contagion kit. It will save lives through early treatment, and every American should have at least one of these kits in their home. That's the website right here. I'm just going to make sure. twc.health/Viva for your promo code, which will get you, to make sure that I don't oversell what it's going to get you. Well, son of a bee sting. I just need to make sure. I'm always neurotic about promising more than what my promo code will get you. It'll get you 10% off, free shipping at checkout. twc.health/Viva. And that's it. They're great. The link is in the description, and they're doing amazing stuff at the Wellness Company. All right, I see Biggity Barnes in the back. Hold on a second. Now I hear my voice. Hold on. There it is. Boom. All right, let me take this out. Bring Barnes in. Is there anything else I need to talk about before Barnes got here? No, we've done it all, people. So the standard things here. I forgot just before Barnes gets in here. Thank you very much. Super chats. YouTube takes 30%. If you want to be efficient about this, go to Rumble, and they have Rumble rants, and there's a load of them lined up already. Rumble takes 0%. Easiest way and bestest way to support, if you like what Robert and I do, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, $10 a month, $100 a year if you get the entire year. I assume that this is the first offense for Nick and his wife, so hopefully probation. More importantly, Nick's got to become clean and sober for his family. We are going to have to talk about the elephant in the room, in as much as I'd rather not, but we're going to. Barnes, I'm bringing you in. 3, 2, 1, sir. How goes the battle?
Happy belated birthday.
Yes, that's right. I'm 40. I forgot to mention it on the stream on Thursday. I'm 45 years old, the year of the Trump.
Well, any particular gifts or cake or celebrations?
I'm a simple man, Robert. We got steak. We got meat at Easy Meats on Glades, and we had a barbecue. I did the exact same thing on my birthday that I do every day. Did a stream, jogging, fished in the afternoon. That's all I ever want for a birthday. It was fantastic. My wife got me spike ball, that thing that you play at the beach. I'll show you what I got actually later on. We'll bring him in, and another gift, which is fantastic. Sorry.
A good combination out there is a group that I think it's FAFO Farms that supports independent small farmers like Amos Miller, is that there are several that are veteran owned, and he's promoting them on they're promoting him on Twitter. So that might be a cool way to celebrate your Memorial Day, is to get some steak and meat from a veteran-owned small independent farm.
Is it called-
Otherwise, of course, one of the best places to get all your other food products is AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com, which they're trying to shut them down in the next 2 weeks. So get your products now to make sure that you can get them at all while we continue to fight the government.
Robert, I guess, look, before we even get into the show lineup stuff of the night, I guess we'll have to address the elephant in the room, which is the news with Rekieta. You put out a post on Locals. I put out my summary just of the legal situation. It's a very sad situation. And someone said to me, well, you didn't show this much. Well, I didn't reply to it. I have to stop replying to trolls. But they said, you didn't show this much sympathy and empathy when it was Hunter Biden. I was like, if you don't understand the difference between all of this, then I can't explain it by way of a comment in Twitter. But so the bottom line is Nick and his wife and a third person who I don't know who she is, but content-wise, but an internet personality, were arrested on, they got charged with 3 charges. One was felony possession of controlled substance over a certain amount, 25 grams. You'll explain the importance of that. The 2 were gross misdemeanors. One was possession of firearms in the presence of a controlled substance, and the other was child neglect, I believe. From what I understand, and these are public documents, so I don't think I'm saying anything that's not public, apparently there was not a wellness check, I don't know what it is, a mandated monitor who said that they were concerned for the kids being neglected, and then police showed up. This is all in public court documents. They wouldn't open the door. They battered the door down, and they found a bunch of stuff when they came there for that reason from the warrant. Take it from there, because I don't know what more I can add to the situation.
There are substantial constitutional questions about everything connected to the Rekieta case. So there's been a lot of focus in LawTube on the substantive charges and those that want to make sure that Nick's health is in good state, and that's understandable. But I think LawTube should start to focus on the constitutional issues of what's taking place here. You have a high-profile critic of the local court system, of the local prosecutors, of the local police, suddenly being subject to an extraordinary search warrant raid and questionable charges that raise questions under the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and even the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Within 2 days of this case, there are major constitutional questions about the conduct of the government. And that to date has not been talked about at great length. So the First Amendment question is, you look at the underlying facts, and I expected to find something different in the probable cause affidavit supporting detention than what I found. According to the only allegation, there's a lot of false statements being made out there. I love the quartering, but he's been taken in by some of these false statements and false claims. Just go to what is actually alleged in the probable cause. We don't yet have the probable cause for the search warrant. I'm very curious about that. But you go to the probable cause for the detention, initial detention, and it basically says a pastor came and reported concern for the children. That normally leads to a wellness check. That doesn't normally lead to search warrant, knock down your door, arrest everybody inside. So my first is, and not only that, there was a week delay. So, I mean, they're seriously concerned for the children, so they do nothing for a week.
Can I stop you there? Actually, my first question when I heard that, because at first I read that it was a pastor who requested a wellness check. I forget what the term is. And my first reaction to that was, isn't that the type of thing that should remain confidential? If indeed, I don't know if Nick is talking to the pastor, isn't that confidential or privileged? And not, there has to be exigent circumstances for a pastor to violate whatever rules of secrecy he's bound by.
I have long opposed mandatory reporting laws, and I understand where they originated. They originated out of concern that child abuse was being unreported by people in a position to know, particularly medical care providers. The problem is it has got to such a length that people cannot seek out counseling. So that I dealt with this with another client where I had to advise them, you can't get counseling. If you go get counseling, then you may disclose something to that counselor that can now be used against you. That shouldn't be the case. We're supposed to have provider petitioner privilege, both in the context of ministers and healthcare officials. And yet these laws are overriding it. And it's always done in the name of let's protect children. It usually leads to children being in more harm because people in a position to seek assistance don't. So I've not been a fan of mandatory reporting laws. But the second aspect of all this is what that's supposed to lead to is a wellness check, not a search warrant and raid of somebody's home. So that is, I find, and the question is it a coincidence that the judges involved apparently in this effort are judges that Nick has been very publicly critical of and questioning not only their competency but their ethics, that it involves a prosecutor's office that Nick has been publicly critical of, exposing issues of corruption and competence, and a police department he has been publicly critical of, exposing corruption and competence.
And to stop you there for a moment, because I heard the same thing as well, and I had the same queries that you had. Apparently, the judge assigned to Nick's criminal case is the same judge who's involved in his civil case, the defamation case, where he's been a vocal critic of her. And I had the same questions, like, how the hell is a judge doing both criminal and civil? But many people say it's a small town, so maybe they're not that many judges.
Well, that's the issue. You have the biggest high-profile critic in a small county of all these powerful actors. Like, people ask me now and then, why do I live in Las Vegas? It's because I don't practice law in Las Vegas. I don't practice law in the state of Nevada. It provides a degree of protection from if you know anything about Las Vegas police, you would know you'd want to be careful. If you want to practice law in Nevada, don't live in Nevada. Put it that. We'll get to that when we get to the Gruden case a little later on. But so I have First Amendment case questions. I mean, were biased, prejudiced, partisan officials part of the entire process? We'll get to this when we can talk about the Trump case, in authorizing and approving this extraordinary search warrant. Then you get to and that could be discriminatory, selective, disparate under the First Amendment, all legitimate issues that also President Trump has raised in all of his cases. Then you get to the Second Amendment issues. I was curious. I was like, okay, why is there a gun charge here? He legally had the right to possess the guns. He's got no criminal history of any category. And I thought, well, there must be something in the probable cause for detention that will say the guns were in the presence of the children or something like that. Nope. It's in his private bedroom, his personal bedroom. In the bathroom of that bedroom is where they found the substances and where they found a gun and some ammunition. It's like, how is that grounds for, under the Second Amendment, to charge anybody with a crime? And then you have the bail provisions that say, because you've now been charged with this crime, you have no Second Amendment rights. You lose your right to possess a gun in Minnesota under their regular routine conditions of bail in Minnesota. That strikes me as violating the Second Amendment. And we've discussed this before. Remember the Oklahoma case, other cases. There is no constitutional history, and that's the standard under Bruin, of criminally punishing someone merely for possession of a gun, merely because they've also been charged with possession of some illegal substance. It's only been illegal use of a gun at the time you possess or are under the influence of illegal substances or under the influence beyond the range of what's legal, such as alcohol, and usually in a public place. And so I think that the criminal charge of the gun charge against Rekieta patently violates his Second Amendment rights. I think the bail condition violates his Second Amendment rights.
Well, the gun charge is a gross misdemeanor, so 364 days maximum sentence. The big one is the possession of a controlled substance.
The other thing is they use it as an enhancement for sentencing purposes on the drug charge. So there's a dual level influence of that particular aspect. And there's no allegation of any illegal use of a gun. No allegation that he used the gun in a public place. No allegation that he used the gun while under the influence.
The report mentioned a spent shell, which was near the Glock, which I don't. It sounds scary. Was he discharging the weapon, the firearm in the house? The bail, Robert. We had the same two questions, I think, as well. And if I made a mistake, I'll correct myself on Twitter. They were saying $50,000 what was it? Unconditional. It was a UR. There was an acronym they used, and it sounded like it was $50,000 bond or all of these conditions. When in reality, what was agreed to was 50,000 and a bunch of conditions. Correct?
No, it's or. So Minnesota's unique. Most states, that's always an and. In Minnesota, I can tell you why they're doing this. They're doing this to evade constitutional challenges. Though it actually they don't evade it in the process, because you can't impose a monetary fine on the assertion of your constitutional rights or remedies. That would be a form of unreasonable bail under the Eighth Amendment, just as it would be an excessive fine if it were a fine as some form of civil or criminal punishment under the Eighth Amendment. What they're doing is they're setting themselves up to make it easy. Say, you didn't have to apply any of these conditions as long as you posted bail. They give the two options. Either you post bail and then you have no conditions on you, none, or you agree to the conditions and then you're out on your personal recognizance and you don't have to issue. And the theory is that either one will secure your appearance later. How does taking away somebody's Second Amendment rights secure their appearance?
Well, but then, I mean, why wouldn't the options? I thought they were alternative, and then I thought they were cumulative when they were agreed to. It was 50,000 bond, which he would have only had to post 10% and get the rest by a bonding company, or these conditions, or these. It depends
on the jurisdiction. There's some places that are pure cash bail where you have to post the whole amount. I think in Minnesota you can get a bond agency to post.
Okay, so he agreed to the conditions, which include travel restrictions, drug testing. What else?
But also loss of gun rights.
My own question was, independently, what happens if someone's out on bail and then there's a random drug check or alcohol test check
they try to, that raises separate Fourth Amendment issues, always has. Drug testing while on bail, to me, is also unconstitutional. It's arisen in the probation context, even. The Ninth Circuit called it an unconstitutional condition. So in my view, that's, again, and what they're trying to do is use scandalous or sensational facts to slowly strip us of all of our liberties and rights. They're trying to use bail as a control mechanism. And so that's its own independent problem. The same with controlled substances. For those folks out there that might be like, well, I really hate particular substances, don't think person should ever use them. Okay, just remember, right now, the state of Pennsylvania has already said that having Amos Miller's raw milk in your refrigerator is the exact same as having any illegal drug in your possession. Now imagine if they could use, you have Amos Miller's raw milk in your fridge as grounds to strip you of all your Second Amendment rights. And then we get to the next charge, the child endangerment charge. I assume there was some connection. There's none. They're simply saying, if you possess an illegal substance, we're going to call that endangerment of a child. And it's like, that strikes me as a Fifth Amendment violation, because under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the most fundamental of all fundamental rights under the Due Process Clause, as the Supreme Court itself has acknowledged many times, is the right of a parent for control, custody, and care of their children, for them to make those decisions. That can only be invaded if you showed harm to the child. There is no allegation at all that he has caused any harm to his children ever.
And now, so let me.
That's according to the government. I'm just going with the government's own probable cause declaration.
Well, no, and that's what I was going to say. Is like there's a lot of, well, say the quartering, for example, says, Nick has been blackout drunk, and then 4 hours later talks about driving his kids around. You're not sober within 4 hours, whatever. A lot of other people have seen what I'll call the public meltdown, which I think is related to alcohol abuse at the very least, and infuse that or combine that. Whereas from the state's perspective, that it's not like they even referenced the streams.
Exactly. If that was the basis, it would have been in that. See, I thought they had some independent basis for this. They had none. All they did is some, and this will get to the Fourth Amendment issue now. I thought there was something more here. Not, okay, you found something in a dude's bathroom, and that's it. All of a sudden, you're going to take that as a grounds for a search warrant. You're going to take that as a grounds to take away Second Amendment rights. You're going to take that as grounds to take away care, custody, and control of children. You're going to use that to let child endangerment. When the child, I read the statute requires the child be in the presence. They're interpreting that so broadly that they can basically take away anybody's child if any substance you're using they don't like. And remember, the state of Pennsylvania includes Amos Miller's raw milk in that. That's how nuts some of this is. It violates constitutional rights, and they're using the scandal and sensational facts and people like the quartering misunderstanding the facts to try to get away with a severe deprivation of constitutional liberty.
Well, no, I think a lot of people are joining what they know personally and what they've witnessed over the last little while with the law. So they're saying, okay, well, I know all this stuff.
That's where they're like, no one has witnessed anything bad, but I assume they had these facts. They don't. Anything negative towards the children at all, other than they thought the house was messy. And I was like, hold on a second, that's not grounds.
Well, no, I
alleged child endangerment. I mean, then I committed every other day if that's the case.
And like that, the document says, dirty dishes and the house is sort of in disarray. I'm like, crap, if someone comes through this at my house and says there's dog poo and streaks of dog, they won't know it's dog blood, but like one of our paralyzed dogs, she sometimes bleeds and drags her feet around. And I mean, that much I'm very skeptical of. I think what a lot of people are doing is merging what they have seen personally and publicly of Nick with these charges.
In the live chat where people are saying, well, I know this in general about people who have problems with alcohol or drugs or gambling or other abuse, addiction related issues causing issues with children. Yeah, but we don't presume things like that. We don't assume that everybody that has an issue that you have to prove it with actual facts. And that's the problem here.
Well,
now we get to the Fourth Amendment problems next.
Oh, before you get to the Fourth Amendment, let me just throw this in because people say, look, a pastor was so concerned. He said a wellness check on the kids, and there has to be a good reason for that. Who the hell knows what information the pastor had? We are living in a world where I'm not trying to be over cynical.
Well, I thought there was more detail. I mean, that's where I thought, okay, this is a detention warrant. This is saying this is the grounds for all of this. And I thought, okay, there's going to be a lot of details of what the pastor said that really precipitated serious concern, and that it's not there. I mean, I was stunned it wasn't there. I was like, wow. They saw this as an opportunity to go after one of probably their biggest critic, given how small a county they are. Their biggest critic. They're like, this is a chance to shut him up and punish him for yipping about us for years. That's what I see, because that pastor's complaint was what was more like, hey, I got a basic concern. It was not here, this specific. Nothing like that was there.
And people can say, like, I see some of the chat, like, you're defending them. Even, first of all,
I could care less about those people. So I care about constitutional liberty. I want Nick to do well. I want him to get good counsel, all those things on a personal basis. But we're not the shrink show, nor are we the moral judgment show. We're the law for the people show. And we care about constitutional rights and liberties. And guess what, folks? You dig into a lot of constitutional rights. Miranda wasn't the sweetest human being on the planet. So, I mean, you get people that some of our core constitutional rights when they want to eviscerate our rights, they're not going to go after popular people. They're not going to go after people who have the most perfect life history. For those that don't remember, Rush Limbaugh had his own addiction problems. Half of America will either have a personal close relationship with someone or themselves have an addiction problem at some point in their lifetime. That's so these people that get real judgmental, it's like, hold on a second, this is pretty darn common. Mark Robert does great work in terms of helping people. You can go to America's Untold Stories. He covers that. You can read his book about Rehab Nation. That there's good stuff there. But on the law side, they're trying to eviscerate his constitutional rights. And I see all a law tube that not talking about this. And it's like, to me, once I dug in, I was shocked at what I was seeing.
Well, especially in the context of that umbrella guy's covering it. I mean, he's also concerned for what Nick he considers to be a friend, but like they called CPS on that umbrella guy as well. Anonymous calls. Yeah. Who knows what information the pastor is acting on? Well, they've got 5 kids.
That's the Fourth Amendment issue. So I thought, okay, so first of all, and for people out there, when people get swatted, that's usually a Fourth Amendment violation by the government. The government can't rely on anonymous information, third-party information, hearsay information as their sole basis to go and take a ram and bang down your door in your house, right? That's not what is allowed under the Fourth Amendment. You have to have probable cause of a crime, and under internal public policy, it's discouraged. We'll get to this when we talk about Trump and Mar-a-Lago. You got to be discreet when you're executing search warrants, okay? Search warrants should be for exceptional cases. Right? That's drug dealer cases. How many times have you heard of a search warrant being executed on a first-time alleged a drug user? I mean, this is very rare. I'd be curious how often they've done it in that small county. So again, going to the First Amendment issues, but what was their basis for probable cause? So the pastor doesn't have any firsthand information, doesn't report any firsthand information. Okay, so now you've got like, and he's reporting it from somebody else. So he's like, you got third-hand information. If the information may be privileged in the way in which he got access to it, which raises its own separate set of questions. He apparently had no detail. I mean, it's of any actual neglect or abuse. He didn't say, okay, that the child is having this problem or this problem. None of that. It's, hey, I think that there may be an issue with substance abuse of the parent. I'm concerned with how that impacts the kids. He's clearly asking for a wellness check. He's not asking to raid the house in front of the kids with a bunch of armed police officers ramming the door down. And so I think there's serious Fourth Amendment issues present here, because I'm very curious how they got to probable cause, because by golly, it ain't in that detention warrant. And then we still have another one, because they're busy violating every constitutional liberty they can figure out there in that small Minnesota county. We have the Sixth Amendment issues. They apparently were on notice at some point early on that he was the counsel for his wife and for the third person that was arrested there. It's one thing is, why are they arresting everybody? It's like they arrested everybody in the house. You mean if they do some sort of raid at some place, a party or possession, you're not supposed to arrest everybody, but they arrest every adult. So the kids get forced out of the house. That raises its own question. Clearly, they didn't have much evidence on the third person, because then they dismissed the charges 2 days later.
So her name is April Imholt. They dismissed her charges?
Mm-hmm. All dismissed, all gone, all finito.
Some people might be hypothesizing that means she's cooperating with the state.
There's always a possibility that that's why they arrested her. But here's the issue. Did they talk to her? If they knew Rekieta was her lawyer, did they talk to her without notice to Rekieta? Because that's what Rekieta reported. He said he had been foreclosed from talking to either his wife, who he was representing, or her, who he was representing.
Now, let me stop you there.
Put him on immediate notice. He says he put them on immediate notice that he was representing them. So that's Sixth Amendment right to counsel issues. There's also Miranda issues, because they'll said they would have Mirandized everybody. But it's like, did they arrest her solely to scare and terrify her into telling whatever story they wanted her to tell outside the presence of counsel? So they didn't have probable cause for the arrest, didn't have probable cause for her detention, and then invaded her Sixth Amendment rights in order to secure whatever favorable testimony they possibly could as payback to Rekieta being a high-profile public critic.
Let me ask you the question before I'm going to read some of these chats, because they have some decent questions in there as well. It's one thing to say I want to represent someone and I'm being denied counsel. Can a co-defendant who's an attorney represent another co-defendant?
Oh, yes, and I'll give you an example, because the government's done this nonsense to me. So one of the games the government likes to play, they did it to Gotti when they finally got him, is that they try to find a way to separate out the client from the lawyer. And now I was very public saying, if you're in a situation like Nick's, get independent counsel right away. It's the first call you make. You make sure they're all lined up. You make sure the cops all know. You make sure everybody all knows. That's just tactical advice. Putting that aside, that still doesn't change the constitutional analysis. So absolutely, he can represent them, and they can challenge it at a later point about whether there's a conflict, an unwaivable interest. Okay. But the government has done this multiple contexts in my cases. They try to always separate out the defendants. Usually the defendants are best served with joint defenses, often joint representation. But because they know that the best way they get people to point fingers at each other, both of them usually go down. That's how that tends to work, particularly in husband and wife situations. But the other aspect is they also, if the lawyer's real effective, they go after the lawyer. So years ago, I had a case in which my client sort of stumbled into a massive Obama scandal. And the scandal was that the Obama administration was using the IRS to enforce Obamacare. And it was the pretext by which the Obama IRS who already had everybody's most private information through the financial records they confess each year on their tax returns, and their other mass gathering of it. It's part of why they want the PayPal information and all the rest. It's to put you into the surveillance grid. It's not about making sure they accurately collect tax. But what they did in this context is they were stealing everybody's medical records. They were going around to medical care providers and record keepers especially, and forcing them to turn over all of their medical records. This was information that gave them, I called it J. Edgar Hoover's wet dream of a blackmail file. And they had stolen the medical records of every judge in the state of California, and I'm sure they were doing it across the country, of every Major League Baseball player, of every screenwriter, of every movie director, of every movie actor, of every movie producer. They were stealing all of it. And basically they had blackmail on some of the most powerful people in the world, either in terms of social influence or political influence or legal or economic influence. Because, they knew who had been in for sex addiction rehab treatment, for example, right? That kind of thing. And he stumbled into it and started to report it. And the IRS decided to put him under microscopic inquiry for criminal tax cases and tried to lock him up for life. And he hired me, and I was the hit. I exposed what they had done on the medical records, started exposing their other misconduct. The prosecutor involved was very politically connected. He was the guy that was picked by the Obama administration to handle fast and furious charges in another jurisdiction. That's how politically ambitious this guy was. But the IRS got very agitated, and his office got very agitated that I was having a lot of success. And so they decided to manufacture a case where they were going to accuse me and my client of being in a conspiracy to assassinate the prosecutor on one of the most ludicrous, asinine, absurd charges ever. But their whole goal was to separate me from the lawyer. Say, oh, now you can't represent him anymore, Barnes, because now we got an accusation against you two. And if you don't play ball, Barnes, or be nice, maybe, this has a death penalty statute that this carries with it. And my attitude was, F you. That I'm going to protect my client's constitutional rights and my own. And, let's see how this all works out at the end. In the end, by the way, he didn't serve a single day in federal prison, didn't pay a single fine, but he did recognize the need to get out of the United States, and he's not come back since. And this was a guy who was a deep-hearted American when the whole case started. So this is an old game. They did it to Gotti. They got Gotti talking to his lawyer on tape in a way that they could interpret in a certain way that got a judge to say Gotti could no longer use the lawyer who successfully got him acquitted repeatedly. So this is an old scam of the government, and it's never an excuse, and they know that. So that's where I think all the law tubers out there, I understand people's personal concern for Nick. Everybody wants Nick to do well. Nick has been a stand-up guy for a long time. He's helped a lot of people. By everything I've ever seen, he's a stand-up family man. He's a guy that stood up for Kyle Rittenhouse, was his lead advocate in the court of public opinion, and I'm glad he exposed corruption when he saw it in his local jurisdiction. Everybody wants him to do well. But what LawTube should start to focus on, in my view, is what the heck's going on in that county. This looks like serious, significant constitutional violations as punitive retaliation against someone they don't like. And we should all be concerned about that because that can happen to any of us who call out corruption or fraud in our government.
I'm going to read through as many of the super chats that relate to Rekieta before we move on to the other subject. Could probable cause have come from seeing Nick with apparent powder on his nose on a live stream? I haven't seen that. I've seen people commenting on that.
Nothing in there. See, that's what I was like. Maybe they drew some connection. Maybe they used some evidence. Nothing. None of that is in the probable cause affidavit for detention.
Yeah, unless it's in the probable cause.
Why wouldn't that be in there? Even if that was the basis, the guy included whether the dishes were dirty, right? I mean, you would expect that. That fact would be in there if it existed.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's cleared up, there will be no understanding to stop swatting Nick. His address was given out during the hearing. He looks unwell, though. There was no Glock in Nick's police report. The gun was under the bed, an unloaded Sig Sauer AR. The spent shell was a .22 caliber. No .22 caliber was listed in the police report. So the whole basis.
There are people who often carry different things in bullet and unused shells.
And Pasha says, if the charges are true, the children get the short end of the stick. If the charges are false, the children get the short end of the stick. I think even if the charges are false, we've witnessed the behavior that should
what the government is capable of. It's Yeah, I think there's serious I mean, for example, that judge should have disqualified herself right away. Who signed that search warrant? I mean, why isn't their discretion being exercised by these judges and being careful? I think that, what we're seeing, and maybe it's a good transition, we're seeing courts, whether it's Amos Miller case and dealing with the state government there, whether it's the illegally imprisoned farmers dealing with the rogue Commonwealth Court judge, whether it's the judges trying to lock somebody up because somebody recorded a proceeding and documented judicial corruption there in the Pennsylvania courts, or right to Trump. What we're seeing is, or in the Rekieta case.
Sorry, go for it. Before we get into Trump,
we have a common theme in all of this, which is out of control judges.
We're going to get to the out of control judges in the Rumble side of things. In vivabarneslaw.locals.com, people should believe Robert. The police, in my experience, never help addicts. They only want to jail them. Nick should choose the no condition bail. The subsequent testing is a setup, says NY Renal MD. Nick should have chosen the no condition. Okay, we got that one. And then I'll just get a few left over here in the Rumble to see if we've missed any questions before we give the menu of the evening and move on over to Rumble, because we've been here for a while. Anton's Biltong is delicious. Then we got King of Biltong. Good evening from Anton's Meat and Eat. Free shipping on your Biltong using code Viva. BiltongUSA.com, AntonUSA.com. Happy birthday, Viva. We have sent you some Carmian red tea. Enjoy. Thank you very much. Okay. Mega Mobas says 1,000% or 100% agree, Barnes. I'm certainly glad, though, that there was some form of intervention. Nick isn't well. However, there was no reason for the level of intervention. I'm very curious to see the warrant. My only issue with Rekieta is that his hypocrisy damaged his credibility, says Pinochet's helicopter tour. Rockahora, the Rekieta case seems fishy as F to begin with. Rackets is literally prescribed the legal version of meth to begin with. I think that's an Adderall or something. Why on earth would he have the legal version? Well, I mean, you can think of ways that things can be reconciled or, explained away. But the public display that concerned everybody is still a separate issue. Sadaka says, I've spent a lot of shells. I have a lot of shells lying around because I reload. Spent shell means nothing. Just thinking Rekieta was pretty loud and constantly talking about the corruption at all levels. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the DOJ was involved in his arrest. Love you guys. Happy birthday, both recently. I think that's it for Rekieta. Okay. What we're going to do, Robert, tell us the menu of the day, and then we're going to head on over to Rumble and then to Locals, and I'll give everybody the link. What's our schedule? We're starting with Rumble.
Speaking of out-of-control raids and out-of-control corrupt courts, we have the news on the Trump trial front, both the Mar-a-Lago raid facts that got disclosed. License to kill is what they were given, the Biden administration raiding the Trump Mar-a-Lago, the Southern White House. And we'll do a preview of closing arguments and the judge rigging the trial even more in his insane jury instructions. Then we've got the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court. People asked in the response to our board poll to talk about the federal funding case. So we'll add that to the SCOTUS cases, the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and the meaning of the appropriations clause. We got crypto arbitration. We got sentencing for pot and racial redistricting, all decisions issued by the Supreme Court. We have a little bit of a fake scandal involving Justice Alito, and Justice Sotomayor may explain that with her recent speech that hints that some cases are coming down that might lead to a lot of lefty crying this summer. We've got the Biden ballot case in Ohio. We've got the corrupt decision, in my opinion, by the Nevada courts, where thank God I don't practice, involving John Gruden in the NFL, also involving the abuse of arbitration, a common theme in the show about is how they're eviscerating our jury trial rights and public trial rights with these excessive arbitration enforcement provisions. We've got people being denied transplants based on requiring them to take the COVID-19 vaccine before they get there. Is there any legal relief or remedy from such actions? We've got Ian Smith in New Jersey, the gym owner who fought the government, and by golly, he won rather than the government won. A white pill, you might say, for today. We got the International Court of Justice issuing warrants for the president of Israel. I got
a specific question on that one. We'll get to it.
And refusing to help out with the rogue country of Ecuador, which not only allowed its own embassy to be raided for the illicit arrest of Julian Assange, but then it raided the Mexican embassy to deny asylum to someone there. We have the Ticketmaster being exposed with a monopoly, and might have a little fun bonus case about when the cookie crumbles, referencing the company Crumble itself.
Robert, We're going to end on YouTube now. So let's just get that number below 6,000 before we move over. But go over to either skip Rumble and come straight to vivabarneslaw.locals.com or Rumble Viva Fry. And I will post. So what I'm going to do, I'm changing the format a little bit for tomorrow. I'm going to post the entire stream on Viva Clips, not on Viva Fry. So that's where all the full streams are going to go, and the clips are going to go on the main channel and the vlogs, because I think I'm confusing an algorithm. So get one's buttocks. Oh, we got. Thank you.
What did you get for? You didn't say what you got for your birthday.
Oh, Marion, can you bring the Crocs? Hold on, I'll bring them. Could you bring my birthday present, Crocs? Okay, we're gonna. Well, as the numbers trickle down on YouTube, yes, you'll see what my gift was, and there was a theme. Shoes, shorts, shirt, and spirit. Now, hold on a second. All I was going to say is, get your shot glasses.
You fish. By the way, was that another
no. This
was
Robert,
that another crocodile that stole fish?
Yes, and the kid, it's amazing. If I fish in all of this, I will be the most conspicuous fisherman on earth. Yes, people. American flag Crocs. They are comfortable.
Apropos Memorial Day.
Absolutely. And I got shorts with the American flag, a shirt with the American flag. All right. Everyone, let's go to Rumble. Rumble here. Hold on. Which one is that? That's locals. And I'll give everyone the link one more time. We're starting with this. Did you, I know you're busy. Did you happen to see my interview with Steve Baker and we were discussing the raid?
Yeah, I saw part of it. And the either tomorrow as a Memorial Day special or Tuesday, hopefully I'll be live doing a special edition of What Are the Odds with Richard Barris at 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got back the results from the 1776 Law Center poll survey on food freedom, medical freedom, financial freedom, political freedom, and got some great data and information, particularly how popular food freedom is and how popular certain solutions on medical freedom are. So we'll be doing a deep dive on those with Richard Barris, People's Pundit Daily, either Monday or Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Amazing. Now I'm ending it on Twitter, ending it on YouTube, and we're going to stay on Rumble and Viva Barnes.